I'm Yuri from Oracle Red Bull Racing Esports, and today we've got another lap guide at Le Mans, but this time we're on the LMP2 car, and this time it's for week 12 of the European Sprint Series. It's the track's the same as last week we did in the Porsche, but with the LMP2 we've got quite a few different lines and quite a few different tricks that I want to show you guys, so let's get into it. So coming up to the line when you want to start a quali lap, make sure to not hit the curb on the right here, get a good exit. We're on the race field though. And into turn 1 is a good place to save some fuel. Into the kink here, small lift, you won't lose you much time, it's much more important to get the car lined up on the right. Try to sacrifice the first lap and just set up for a good exit from the Dunlop chicane. The car will bounce a bit on the inside there, but it's fine. Small inputs here, especially with cold tires. The car doesn't have much grip. That's your rouge, we want to set up for maximum possible exit again. And then we get to the straight, and compared to last week, this time we need to stay on the side of the track. So either on the left or right side of the white line. Will give us a bit extra top speed. If we drive in the middle, the car can bottom out a bit. And take it easy into the chicane here. You want to focus on getting a good exit, and the entry speed doesn't matter as much. Slowly start introducing the throttle, because we won't have much traction out of these chicanes. Again, we want to be on one side of the road. Second chicane, we want to also sacrifice our entry a bit and focus on having a good exit. In the race we can even lift a bit, like lifting 100 meters. Just focus on getting nice exit. As you see, sometimes on the curve with the LMP2 car we need to take slightly different lines than the GT car, but we'll get over that in more detail after this lap. Bring the car over to the left from Milson corner. Very easy to lock the inside here. We come up to Indianapolis. Indianapolis is quite strict with the LMP2 car, it tends to understeer quite a lot. Important to try to load that front end. Again, one side of the road. Bring the car over to the one side. Try to open Indianapolis up. Then we get to Arnage, we don't use the curb on the left. Always check your traction here, especially later on in the stint. Very important to try to straighten the car out before going flat out there. Get to the Porsche curves. The Porsche curves is up to us to be very smooth on our pedal inputs. So first right hander, we want to try to hug the inside as much as we can. We want to use the grass on the inside here. Over here, very small inputs, try to hug that white line on the right side. Hit the apex there. Get to the four chicanes, which is very tricky with the LMP2 car. It's easy to damage the floor, so we can't take too much of it. And you go over to the left. That's the lap on the LMP2 car. Let's have a closer look on how that looks like and our detailed analysis. Right, so here we are taking a closer look at the lap time we just did in the LMP2 car. Again, we can try to take a straight line here, but maybe it's a bit easier to keep the car a bit to the left to open up the next corner. The LMP2 car will always understeer here, especially with the temperatures that we're racing next week. It's quite hot track temperatures. The car will want to understeer wide and then have a bad entry into the first chicane, the Dunlop chicane. So what we want to do to aid with that, maybe not in qualifying or a race lap, but especially if you're behind someone, it's much better to just lift a bit, get to the right and make sure we have a good entry to the Dunlop chicane. This is also a very good place to lift a bit in the race to save a bit of fuel, to maybe jump an extra 1 or 2 positions in the pit stop. So we want to lift a bit, maybe even a bit earlier if the car has less grip later on in the stint. and make sure that we get our car lined up to the right side. Again, we can use all of this track on the right side here. So we want to brake in a straight line and get all the way over to the right side before we start turning in. We have the same track limits as with a GT, but with the LMP2 car, we want to apex a bit later here than with a GT. The reason for that is that the car bounces quite hard over these curbs, and especially if you take a line that's too narrow, the car can jump up and you'll miss the second chicane completely. So we want to turn in quite late and try to get the car all the way over as much to the left as we can to open up the right hander and have a good exit. We don't have much traction here, so we want to get a good exit out of here. Again, the track limits are at these two flappy boards, and in the first one is at the left wheels at the gravel. The second one is quite tricky, there's not really a reference. It's about with the left wheels on this white line. Then we get into the first section. Again, we want to keep the car all the way to the right. This is also another nice place to save maybe another 20 or 30 meters of liftoff. That saves an extra tiny bit of fuel, especially if you're behind someone. We're going to get a very long straight, so it's no use to be about 2/10 behind someone through here. Much better to just take a bit of a lift, try to save that bit of fuel and jump those extra couple people in the pit stop. Once we get into the corner here, we want to make sure to not lose the rear end, so have small inputs, and then try to follow the curb on the inside. So I want to get to the curb quite late and then try to follow the curb on the inside from about the middle point, about the starting thing. If we get to the apex too early, to the inside curb too early, you'll struggle in taking the next right-hander flat out, which is what we want to do in the LMP2 car. So next right-hander, you can go over the curb, but if you go too far over the curb, it upsets the car. You'll see that a lot in this lap, where curbs that we could be taking with the GT car, we can't take with the LMP2 because it bounces too much. With Le Rouge will be the same. We want to open the corner up as much as we can. Tires as close to the grass as you dare. Throw it in and then try to be at full throttle around the apex point here. And try to carry the speed to the exit again. You want to be back onto the track where the curb ends, with the middle of the car being on this drainage pipe. So you want to be as close as possible as you can to that, because we want to get the best possible exit out of the Le Rouge onto the straight. Get to the back straight. We don't want to be on the middle here. Now in the LMP2 car we want to be either on the left or right side, and you'll see that for every straight. The reason for that is if you drive in the middle, like with the GT car, the bottom of a floor will bottom out and will start losing a bit of speed. So I want to be left or right side and not spend too much time in the middle. Then the first chicane, another place to have a lift, especially if you're behind someone. And a lot of the times it's better here to sacrifice a bit of the entry speed, make it a bit easier for yourself, brake maybe those 5-10 meters earlier. Use this cone here on the left as a reference to where you're turning in. And then try to set the corner up for a good exit. Again, middle of the car, at the edge of the curbs here. Try to set the car up for a good exit. And the LMP2 car struggles a lot for traction here. So what we want to do is open the corner up, meaning that we want to be quite far to the right side going into the apex here. And then slowly build up the throttle. You see the whole time I'm not full throttle and the car is already starting to lose traction. As long as you're not in the TC, you're not losing much time with the LMP2 car. If you're in the TC on the corner exit, then you're doing it too much. So you want to be slowly build up the throttle and then not use as much of the curb here either. And the next straight, left or right side of the white line, up to you. I try to line the next corner up so I go to the right side quite early. Then the next chicane, again, brake at about the 100 marker. Can lift to it beforehand, not important to go in super fast. It'll make it very tricky for yourself into the corner if you go super fast and most likely lose time. We hit this cone normally as a reference. If you're hitting this cone, then you got a good entry. And in this corner here, we can slightly use the inside here, but if you hit this bump, you see where the curb edges up a bit. If you hit this curb too hard or with a bad angle, the LMP2 car will bounce up and it will ruin the next corner, and with that it will ruin your exit and the next straight as well. So be very careful of using this inside here. You can use it a bit, You can hook your tires behind this curb, but if you hit this at a bad angle, the car will bounce and you'll lose quite a bit of time. Then try to line the car up. Good exit. Now for the exit here. Last week we looked at this as a reference mark and use our right wheels here, left wheels here. With the LMP2, that doesn't work. The LMP2 is too low to the floor, so we want to use here is this with our left wheels, and our right wheels need to be on the right side of the curb. I found that it's faster. If you go over it, you gain a bit of time on the exit here because you run wider, but oftentimes hitting this bump here slows your car down a bit, and it will slow down the car down all the way down the straight, which overall is going to lose its time. So we want to avoid that. Left wheel on the side of where it goes up. From the inside cam you can see it a bit better, but the curb goes up here as a reference, so your left wheel wants to go there, the right wheel on the right side. So you can go in the middle of this curb, and then your left wheel needs to go down before this edge on the curb comes. And then you'll see if you go over that on this speed, the car doesn't bounce up, which is what we want to avoid. We want to keep traction to the floor. Then we get to Millsand corner. Millsand corner is very, very tricky in the LMP2 car. It's again, just like the chicanes, a very good place to lift and save a bit of fuel. But it's very, very easy to lock this inside front here. So what we want to do is use this cone as a reference again. Just after this cone, start turning in while you're on throttle. And immediately, when you start braking, you want to have a straight line. So you see, the moment I start going on the brakes, my car is on a fairly straight line towards that outside cone. So what I want to do with that, instead of being on the inside here, having to turn quite a bit, I want to turn on the throttle and then go in a straight line as possible. And that's going to help me brake a bit harder and avoid lockups on the right side front. So to brake in a straight line as possible. Open Millsand corner up. This is Millsand corner. We can be close to these green poles on the inside, but it's much more important to get a good exit out of here. Exit out of here, it's the same as the chicanes. Bring in the throttle slowly. Try to keep the traction of the rear tires, and then we can use all the way up to the gravel on the left side here. Get to the next straight. Again, left or right side. On this straight, it's better to go on the right side because you can get the apexes of these two kinks. And then we just keep on the right side here as well. We keep on the right side. And then we go to the left for the next corner, which is Indy. We want to keep the middle of the car on the right side of this green line here. And then try to open the corner up. And the LMP2 always understeers here. So what you can do is let the car completely lift while you're turning in, or even keep a bit of the brake on. A bit of the brake on will give that front a bit more weight and make it easier to go towards that curb on the right side, which is what we want to aim for. We always want to get close to this curb. If you take too much speed in the kink, you're going to end up in the middle of the track, and that's going to compromise the exit for Indianapolis. So a good reference is if you're close to this curb, you don't have to hit the curb, but you want to be close to it. Once you do that, you know you've got a good entry for the next corner. Then in Indianapolis, we've got two choices. We either hug the curb on the inside, or you can go completely over it. Some setups, it will work to go completely over it. Most of the time, it's better to just hug the curb. Get to the exit here. Again, traction is quite difficult in this car. We can use quite a bit of the gravel on the right side. There's not a long straight after this, so the exit is not that important. It's more important the speed we carry through the corner. So using a bit of the gravel on the outside is fine. Here again, we don't really want to use the curb with most setups. We want to brake in a straight line, get our left side tires on the curb, but don't use the complete outside line which we had last week in the Porsche, going over the curb. That will upset the car too much. Brake in a straight line. And this one, especially on hotter tires, on older tires, you need to be very, very patient on the throttle. You want to only start going full throttle when you've almost got the car completely straightened out, because we're going low speed. So you want to start straightening the car out quite early so that we get a good exit out of the corner. And again, very slowly building that throttle up. If you hit a TC there on the exit, it's going to cost you a lot of time down this whole next straight. Then we get to Millsand. Millsand in the LMP2 car is all about keeping the speed up. Again, for this entry here, we want to have the middle of the car on the edge of this green line. and we want to shift down on these hotter temperatures down to 4th gear, and we want to get to the inside and then hug the inside curb here as much as we can. Use that bit of engine braking in 4th gear and try to hug the inside. Exit, it's fine, coming out to the left, and we can get as far out to the left as you can while still taking the next left-hander full throttle. So if you get too far to the left on the exit here, you'll have to lift on the next left-hander, and then you know that you'll have done this corner too fast. So we want to exit about the middle, and then another good trick of taking this corner flat out is using this grass on the inside. It won't upset the car in the LMP2. What that does though, it slows the left side of the car down a bit, which makes the car have this motion around the corner, which is the same motion as we want, pointing it towards the exit already, so it's going to help us go through the corner. There's not really an off-track on the inside on the first left-hander here, so it's up to us to use this inside grass to get the car rotated and keep out of this wall on the right side while keeping flat out. Then next left-hander, we also want to use a bit of the grass before the curb here, but we can't use as much grass as the last corner. We will get an off-track if we use the same amount of grass here. So want to get the car pointed in, you can use this bit of grass before the curb. Get onto the curb. And then again, here's slow inputs. You can run wide here, but it will sacrifice the next corner too much. What I like to do is get towards the middle of the track here, and then try to hug this white line all the way to the entry of the next corner, which is karting. So we want to brake to the inside and hug the white line as much as we can all the way down the inside. And again, slow inputs on your pedals, which will keep the weight transfer calm, which will help you keep close to this line the whole time. Then quick tap on the brakes here for the direction change, and try to aim for where this curb starts on the left side here. This quick tap on the brake here makes the car suddenly respond to that the direction change. You get to the inside and you can start building up throttle really early without going too wide here. Then we get to the forward chicanes. You need a good line through the forward chicanes here. What can sometimes happen if you take a bad line? To the first one, if you take too much on the inside with again turning in too early, the car will jump up. So we want to avoid that. We want to use this pit entry here. Try to make sure that the braking is in a straight line towards the apex already. And then again, start turning in quite late. If you turn in quite late, you can use a lot of the inside here with the right side tires on the curb. If you turn in too early, the car will bounce up. Slow down over this one as well. Again, left side tires can be on the edge of the curb. Then we want to open up the last chicane here. Important here to note is that if you again take a too shallow angle, the rear of your car can land on this point of the curb here, which will then in turn damage your car, and it will cost you a lot of top speed. So going over this, what can help is just when you hit a bit of throttle. What that does is just makes the car jump a bit harder, and you'll be a bit safer. So if you see that sometimes you're going through this corner too fast, you're going to end up in the middle of the track, you need to take the curb early, hit the throttle a bit. And for the last corner, you've got two choices. Some setups that will increase the ride height a bit will be able to take the curb on the right. Most setups though will not do that, will have a bit better downforce on the rest of the track, but you'll have to avoid this curb, meaning that you want to have your right tires on the edge of this curb, never hitting this red part. That will get you a good exit out of the last corner. And that's the lap in the LMP2 car around Le Mans. As you can see, quite a few differences to the GT car. Overall lines are roughly the same, but quite a few details and tricks that we can use to take the last bit of time on this track with the LMP2 car. Right, so that was week 12, the last week of the iRacing season. Nice guide around Le Mans, the LMP2 car this time. I hope everyone enjoyed the lap guides we did for this season. And make sure to tune into the channel, subscribe here to see what we have in store for next season.